Russia, October 1917. The Bolsheviks, a radical minority, overthrow a provisional government that's so weak that anyone with the guts to try could have done it. But they're a relatively unknown group of bookworm terrorists. They should have been gone within weeks. So how did the famously bold Lenin hold on to power by a hair? If you seriously just said that they did it because they had the support of the masses, well, I hope you look forward to being wrong. In terms of context, the Bolsheviks did take power in October 1917. Kerensky, the president of the Provisional Government, was so unpopular that really the Bolsheviks weren't special, they were just in the right place at the right time. We know that Kerensky was so unpopular because he put out a really pathetic plea for help and not a single soldier turned up to try and kick the Bolsheviks out of the Provisional Government. But taking power is easy. Burning down a system takes 5 minutes. Holding power is another thing. The Bolsheviks were really, really small. How on earth did they not get overthrown, like, immediately? The number one misconception, and I can hear the people in the comments already, that the Bolshevik Revolution was a popular uprising. It was a revolution. That's how they stayed in power. I hate to break it to you, but you're very, very wrong there. The Bolshevik Revolution was not a revolution. It was a straight up coup d'etat. A coup d'etat is when a small group of armed people overthrow a government. This was not the masses marching into the Winter Palace and having a brave, violent struggle. It was literally a couple of hundred people who just walked in and arrested the government. We know this because the Mensheviks, the other part of the Communist Party, refused to support. Trotsky, Lenin's right-hand man, says, guys, we did it, communist revolution. The Mensheviks say, we're not taking part of this because this is an illegal coup. Trotsky then has a great line where he says, well, enjoy the dustbin of history. Then they do have an election, and the Bolsheviks don't even win 1/4 of the vote. They win 23% of the vote. Therefore, it cannot be a popular uprising. Retrospective Soviet propaganda massively overstates the popular support. Great example of this, you've obviously seen the famous picture of Lenin talking to the big crowd in April 1917. Most of the people in that crowd did not know who Lenin was. Stalin and Kamenev very cleverly offered free pretzels to anyone who showed up at the train station. That's why it looked like Lenin was really popular. Most people didn't even know who he is. We also know that because many revolutionaries were arrested in 1917. Lenin wasn't one of them. Is that because he was amazing at evading capture, or because he just wasn't on the provisional government's radar? So why did they really hold power? Because it wasn't because they had the support of the people. It was a combination of three things: pragmatism, ruthlessness, and love. Dealing first with pragmatism, what the Bolsheviks did, which was cynical but brilliant, is they retroactively legalized things in order to gain support from groups that they didn't already have the support of. Trotsky has this amazing line where he says, now we've taken power, we just need to pass a few decrees, shut up shop, and go home. And they do that to begin with. Firstly, they pass the decree on land, which abolishes private ownership of property. That was easy. This secures the support of the peasantry, who are loyal to the socialist revolutionaries. We know that because they win 40% of the vote in the 1917 election. Then there's the decree on workers' control, which says that workers now manage the factories, not the managers. This secured the support of the urban proletariat, not just the radical Bolsheviks. A lot of workers are communists, but most of them are Mensheviks because they're gradualists. They're not as extreme as Lenin. But the reason this is pragmatic and not visionary is because the peasants had already seized the land, the workers had already taken ownership of the factories. The Bolsheviks simply rubber-stamped what was already happening and then took the credit for it. This means that they held on to power by saying, look lads, we see what you're doing and we love that, go ahead. They didn't do anything new, they just legalized what had already been happening in practice. Then there's the ruthlessness aspect. Calculated and brutal removal of opposition is how the Bolsheviks held on to power. The Bolsheviks lost the Constituent Assembly elections, so Lenin dissolved it. Democracy is bourgeois anyway. It's dictatorship of the proletariat, not democracy of the proletariat. That gets rid of the political opposition, and then a month after the elections, which Lenin loses, the Cheka, secret police, are created, and the great irony of this is the people who are hired to work for the Cheka are ex-Okhrana, and Okhrana were the Tsar's secret police, but obviously it's completely different because it has a different name. The Red Terror is then declared after an assassination attempt on Lenin. Tens of thousands of people have been killed by 1919. So opposition was defeated politically by disbanding democracy in Russia, and then physically eliminated through the Cheka and the Red Terror. And finally, a good sprinkling of luck is a reason that the Bolsheviks managed to hold on to power. So Lenin became popular with his Peace, Bread and Land, addressing war, food shortages and land for the peasants. He needs to leave the war, and in March 1918 they do exit World War I, and the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk is brutal. They lose 1/3 of their territory and all the good land, you know, the breadbasket of Europe, Ukraine, the Baltics, Finland, the ports in the Adriatic Sea. They lose everything. Trotsky, despite his best attempts of filibustering, Trotsky is deliberately trying to slow down negotiations to buy time, they do have to accept the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, which is a massive, massive punishment. Why sign this treaty when you're giving away 1/3 of your territory? Well, Lenin took a huge gamble, which turned out to work. He gambled that Germany would lose World War I, and that by signing this treaty in March 1918, it would buy them valuable breathing room in the short term. Long term, when Germany surrenders, the treaty can be void and they can just take the territory back. This is very obvious in hindsight, but in reality, it was a really reckless, really, really risky decision, but it turned out to be true. And in November 1918, Germany surrenders, Russia reclaims the territory they lost. So why do the Bolsheviks stay in power? It's certainly not because people liked them. It is because they very cleverly retroactively legalized peasant and worker radicalism. They politically and violently crushed their opposition, and they got very, very lucky by gambling on a brutal treaty with Germany, and then Britain, France and America defeat Germany, which means they don't have to enforce it anyway. Thank you for watching. I hope you found that interesting. If you are confused about any of the things I mentioned, I have other videos on why the Bolsheviks were successful, what communism is, and loads of other stuff on loads of GCSE and A-level topics. Thank you for watching. Keep on historying. This video gets 5 out of 5 big booms.